I'll now go to Naushad Bhai. Naushad Bhai also has a very important position in BNP as the International Affairs Secretary. So he's in a very good position to deal with some of the issues of diaspora. So I'll go to Naushad Bhai to share what he thinks can be done and what he found from today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Abhi, for this opportunity. Thanks to IPF, the Oxford South Asian Society, Oxford Bangladesh Society, and the Lapatnik School of Government, Oxford. I will start with some light notes actually, because the discussion has been so serious. I am really nervous now. And amongst scholars, it's a very it's very precarious, and it's also something that makes me always nervous. I'm more comfortable talking in front of my constituency, saying Jindabad and everything. This is an intellectual discussion, so please forgive me and my limitations. Someone said about this South Asian Society, and Abhi said I did not like Harvard much, and hence I came here. So what I will say, I'll share experience. At Harvard Law School, there was this South Asian Society as well. And there was this reception, we went there, and I found out everybody there was an Indian, except me. I was the only Bangladeshi there. So I was the only person making it South Asian, otherwise it was an Indian thing. And today, thankfully, wherever we go, we see that Bangladeshis are everywhere. You go to any corner of the world, we are there. Even for tourism, you go to the remotest parts of England, you will find another Bangladeshi. And that's something that says something about Bangladesh. And of course, every country will, when you get an new independent country, you start your journey, you'll always have hiccups. Democracy, development, it will all have its hiccups. And we have had ours. And now in terms of politicians, I mean, you're talking about the two politicians here. I will say something I read in Jayadin a long time before. Let's go back to this. Shafiq Rahman wrote it, or he quoted from somewhere, I don't know. He said a politician is someone, whatever he thinks, he does not say. And whenever they say something, they don't do it. And when they do something, they don't think about it. Okay. And I guess we have crossed that part of definition of politics, and we have come to a place now where we are starting to have meaningful discussions like this everywhere. The question is how we go and move forward. I think I will start with, I picked on Abhi's notes actually. He destroyed my lecture, not lecture, okay, my notes. I wrote a lot of things I saw that he has already said, so it's all gone. And I have a few things which are legal, and so I'll speak on those. But before that, I must thank Professor Izaz, Professor Shanaz, Professor Nazrul, Dr. Salma, Dr. Marzia, Dr. Sanaya, future Dr. Sohan, and Mr. Mahbub, and Ms. Sharmeen in future, Dr. Future Sharmeen, inshallah. Thank you so much for all you say. I mean, you see, it's a definition of law. If I start with that, I don't know how many lawyers you know, but you to go to any lawyer, you would not find one definition of law. Lawyers all over the world, we have not yet have come to a conclusion as to what law is. Okay, and therefore, I mean, we have to agree with the fact that we would always have diversity of opinions on the same issue that we talk about. And that's something important. And I remember Professor Minsky, Dr. Khan's supervisor and PhD, he has this very interesting kite theory. And this kite theory says something. A kite theory is basically, what are the components of law? Now, law, he says, is you have to have enforceability, you have to have positivism, which means that basically what the law is. And then, most important part of it, he adds to the legal definition, the definition of law is that you cannot avoid the international community anymore. a result, so law has these 4 dimensions, and hence he calls it a kite theory. The point that I'm trying to make is, we have gone far beyond now from the point of Epicurus, who tried to build a society where everybody would be staying in one commune and everybody would have their own sort of knowledge and use it in a way. But we have gone in a place now, we have come to in a globalized situation where we can all have our share of contribution in the whole thing. Now, I have examples. I mean, you have examples of Nigeria, you have examples of Rwanda, and I have some examples. Italy. Italy has a law itself that's called the Development Cooperation Law. It was done in 2014, and the whole idea of that law is basically how to use the diaspora in the development of Italy. And they have around 2,100 diaspora organizations registered in one place. And they have a national committee for development cooperation, in which one member of the diaspora actually sits as a chairman. So they take the contribution in that way. And in Nigeria, the Nigerians have gone a little bit farther actually. In each embassy throughout the world, they have one desk, an international desk for people who are within the diaspora. They can go and they can actually channelize their knowledge with the people sitting in Nigeria. So that's something, not that we have to replicate everything. It's not an issue of replication, or it's not an issue of transplantation. Like, we cannot transplant democratic ideas. I mean, whatever is good for UK may not be great for Bangladesh. Whatever is great for America may not work in Bangladesh. So we have our own ingenious ideas and transplantation. I mean, Professor Dr. Khan quoted in her book Professor Prakash Shah. His theory is on democratic transplant, and he had said that he's in Queen Mary University probably. Yeah. He had said that it's democratic transplant is not going to work, and that's where I actually come to know it. So the whole idea is that we don't need transplantation exactly, but we are building the knowledge base. We have the knowledge. You're all experts in what you do, and so bringing that knowledge back to home and how we channelize, how we build the bridge is actually the factor. I will skip most of it. I'll just come to a few things and conclude. Now, what we need to, as you discussed, I mean, I was taking notes, writing a lot, and then actually I decided that I cannot actually speak so much, and I would not remember. But a few things that I would like to say is, you spoke about a lot of issues in Bangladesh, within Bangladesh, and my friend Asad here actually has very nicely said that, you see, the situation is, when we create the right situation, we won't have to invite people, you would go on your own. While I agree with that, I also disagree with the fact that it's not about numbers only, okay? It's something different. I'll tell you, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Middle East?
Yes.
Okay, if you have, then I'll tell you this. The feeling of walking down the streets in any Middle Eastern country, I was in Saudi Arabia, even 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, I never felt insecure for 1 minute. And this is something, this is a feeling. You will not be able to put any numbers in there. I mean, if you go to indexes, Saudi Arabia is probably one of the worst countries where you have all kinds of human rights biases, violations, and if the police arrest you, and that's it for you. But having said that, that sense of security when you are there, that's very important. And when you are in Oxford and you are doing your thesis or you are teaching or whatever you are doing, you know that your merit is going to be appreciated. If you write something good, it's going to be published. If you talk sense, it's going to be appreciated. So this is the environment. And so this is what I would like to focus on. We need to sort of create that environment where we feel comfortable as Bangladeshis that yes, and we already take pride of our country in so many respects and so many aspects. And our problem is probably that we compare Bangladesh to UK, we compare Bangladesh to United States because we were privileged. We've been to USA, we've been to UK, and we have not been to Ethiopia. We have not been to Somalia. We don't know what their situation is. So this is a mindset as well, as we talked about earlier, that we also need to think that yes, Bangladesh is doing very well, gradually, slowly and steadily. Where we started 50 years ago, of course we are not there, and 100 years after probably we'll be in a better shape where everybody's going to Bangladesh to see how the world should function. Inshallah, that's the vision, that should be the vision. Having said all that, I mean, I would like to segregate two things. The issues that you raise, that the problems in Bangladesh, that's one aspect of the whole discussion. The other is bridging the knowledge. These are two different issues. So that's something we need to probably address. Issues of Bangladesh, our problems inside the country are a little different from what we can learn from our diaspora probably. And very properly said that the reliance on government is actually reducing in a very significant way, and our private sector has actually done miracles. And the private sector has been actually running the show since the early 80s, I would say. That the private sector development that we have been, we have come here today in a situation when we have a private sector infrastructure guideline as well in place, where people can go and say that, okay, this is how I would like to build this infrastructure, and the government can facilitate it. Saifur actually raised two issues and questioned two politicians that how are we going to address the issue of safety and security, and also the issue of meritocracy. I'll come to meritocracy later, but regarding safety and security, this is actually, it's an issue of, as I said, I mean, an issue of probably accountability, democratic governance, and all these issues. So it's while the economic sector in indexes in Bangladesh have probably done much better, but in the other sectors of governances, our indexes may not have been as good. And the whole point is that there has to be a balancing factor in terms of the development issues, and we are not there yet. But I tell you one thing: our framework is there. Okay, the framework. I mean, all kinds of law that you want. There is no law that UK has that Bangladesh doesn't have. There is no law that any country has that Bangladesh doesn't have. The issue is how we implement it, how we use the law, and that's where we need the change. And that can only be done when there is accountability in governance. I don't mean to only say that it's like, of course it's an issue of bigger democracy in the bigger picture, but it's not necessarily that I'm talking about. I'm also talking about governance in terms of running a school. You see a school and you see that teachers are not taking classes, and then you cannot, as the principal, you're not able to do anything about the teacher because he is well connected. Okay, so it's everything connected, and then we have to sort of understand that. And meritocracy, I mean, my friend here started with nepotism, identifying two Tangal persons from here. So I will not get into that, but let's say I think Bangladesh is recognizing merit much more than before. And having said that, I mean, the problem I think is, I mean, I shouldn't say I only, I think it's, the problem is some of us feel sort of that we could do more than what we have done. And that's a source of frustration. I know someone here who's teaching in a university, who's a professor now. He went to Bangladesh after his PhD, and then he started a law faculty in one university. And within 6 months, he understood that, okay, I am not fit to serve here. And he told me that, Naushad bhai, I understood that I was ready to serve Bangladesh, but Bangladesh was not ready to take my service. So I left. He went to Japan, and then he came here, and he's doing well. I think this is somewhere, I mean, in a government structure, we should really focus on. Two things came in. One is like that after you've crossed certain age, that you cannot get into the government sector. This is something, as a lawyer, I tell you this, that here, if you go to the courts, you would see that they're able to hire judges at any point of time. Anyone is interested, he can just apply to the Judicial Service Commission, and the Service Commission is able to hire them. For us, in the judicial structure, after the BCS exam is over and your age is over, then you have no way of getting into the judicial service anymore. You can become a High Court judge later, but that depends on a lot of factors. This is somewhere, I think, we need to probably work on that, how we can adopt meritorious people into different services, even in foreign service, even in, in all these services. But the problem, however, is this, that when do you put the balance? It's an issue of check and balance. When you're governing, it's a very important issue that you put a balance somewhere, and you have to ensure that, okay, I am able to hire someone with 15 years of experience in the judiciary, practicing as a lawyer, but then, unless you put the right check and balance, I would like to actually hire my brother. He's a lawyer. Okay, so this is where we should work on, and then meritocracy can come in. Data protection issue came in as well. I am, yes, true, it's not very strong, but we are subjected to the WIPO framework, and then therefore the data protection is not completely absent, I would say. Now I have a lot of other things, it seems. Okay, I will not go too much. Like, yeah, as I was saying, I mean, transplanting, you see, in cases, policy level, in cases in UK, I have seen that when you go to the court, one of the huge impediment for a litigant to go to the court is that you're very afraid that if you lose the case, you would have to pay a lot of cost. In Bangladesh, that's not an issue. Even for the police here, if the police files a case unnecessarily, then the police would be penalized for bringing that case, and then the police, it would be awarded cost against. And not only that, the person in that police department, because of the PACE law, the person in the police department who did the case, he would also be investigated. His work would be accounted for. These accountability factors, when they come in place, then I think a lot of things will improve. Like on the other side of the coin is this, judicial review. What in Bangladesh we call is a writ petition. Yeah? Writ petition is something very common for Bangladeshis. We go to the court all the time with that. If you want to go with a judicial review application here, you're dead. Because they have solid 5 grounds and you really cannot go beyond it. But in Bangladesh, we can really challenge a lot of things. That's something very good that we have created. And we have public interest litigation as well. Our judges are more open to sort of intervene. I'm not saying intervention is always necessarily good, but our judges are more sort of practical in terms of intervention in protecting people's rights than here. My experience here is that any corporation can get away with anything. You try to call any bank, you wait for 1 hour, 2 hours, they don't care, and you have no place where you can complain actually. But in Bangladesh, that will not be the case. You can always, there is a place where you can go. I mean, our courts are more available to people, not necessarily our access to justice. two different things. But our courts are more available to people. Anyway, I mean, I will finish here. I will just say that we need to, I mean, governance is prioritizing. So we will have to, as political parties, as government or in opposition, we will have to prioritize our governance policies. And then the most important thing about governance is accountability and regulatory mechanisms to be in place. These are the things that we need to really work on. And in our parliaments, we have the possibility for people to go and speak in the parliamentary committees. My friend here would be able to focus on that in his reply a little bit more. I mean, the visiting teachers and everything, all these things are really very important and enthralling, and we need to focus on these things. We, in 1970s, mid-70s, Shahid Zia actually tried to, I'm a politician, so I will speak about my leader, right? Tried to take the diaspora knowledge. He took some doctors who actually built the Shahid and the Sarwardi Hospital and the Pongo Hospital, etc. He gave them the responsibility to actually build it, and they really built it very well. And the last thing that I want to say is that coordination and reaching out, these are the two factors that will actually bridge the communication network. And that's something we, as a political party, I can tell you this, if we have an opportunity to do something like this, to bridge the facility of the diaspora and the knowledge and the governance of Bangladesh and the system, we would definitely do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think just one sentence highlight would be, I mentioned, it's important to create an environment where meritocracy can flourish, and to create that environment we need accountability and checks and balances. So I think that's probably very powerful highlight of the speech. I'll just now wrap it up because I'm mindful of the time. Most of the British should now be asleep by now, but you know, we're South Asians. So what I will do is, like, I'll give 1 minute floor to Professor Ejaz and Dr. Sonia for concluding remarks, and come to